Madden gameplay has always had its issues and possibly never more than what it has in Madden 25. Online gameplay is bad enough, but if you are playing offline, these issues are even worse. Which is why in this video, I am going to show you the absolute best settings to get the most realistic and competitive gameplay out of the Madden AI. And I do want to preface one more time before we start that these settings are for franchise mode only. If you are a MUT player or if you are an online competitive Madden player, these settings are not for you. So if that is you, go ahead and click off. But if you are somebody who plays hundreds of hours of franchise like I do every single cycle with Madden, these settings are going to help you get the best and most realistic competitive gameplay out of the Madden AI. And this is one of the most important things that I can tell you in this entire video. You want to do this from the main menu of Madden. So as soon as you load up Madden, what you're going to want to do is scroll down to the settings section in the main menu. And once you get into the settings menu, you are going to be under the game options menu, where you are going to scroll down. First and foremost, these settings are for all Madden. If you are trying to play on all pro or pro, if you're not somebody who plays the game a lot and you're not playing on all Madden, these settings are probably not for you. But if you're somebody who wants an actual competitive gameplay experience from the AI, you want to be on all Madden simulation. And I like to play 7-minute quarter lengths. This is completely up to you. These settings don't necessarily affect this. The only thing that quarter length is going to affect is how much stats that you can accumulate. So I think that that is just going to kind of be you determining how much stats you want to put up every single game. I find that 7 minutes gets me where I want to be, where offenses are usually averaging around 21 to 28 points, which is where I like to be, like in that sweet spot of being super realistic. But none of these other settings in this game options menu matter until you get to the very bottom. The rest of this is just preference. So anything that you have a preference towards, you can do. Obviously your passing type and all of that, that's completely up to your preference until you get down to the player sliders section. And this is maybe the most important part of this entire video if you are wanting realistic sliders, is this player slider section. To start off, I like to put the injury slider down to 10. I know that seems super low, but I have played 4 so far long-term rebuilds on Madden 25, and at 10 I still deal with injuries in my franchises. But what it does do is eliminate multiple players getting injured every single week. What I have found is that if this setting is above 10, you will deal with 3 or 4 guys getting hurt every single week in practice, during the games, different times. And me personally, I don't like to deal with injuries that much. If you're more okay with dealing with injuries, I think 15 is an okay spot for this one as well, but I like to put it at 10. As far as fatigue goes, I like to drop that down to 45 from 50. It's not a huge difference, but it does make a little bit of a difference where like your running back can stay in the game a little bit longer, as well as your wide receivers. I find that at 50, your guys come off the field just a little bit too much here in this game, so I like to turn it down to 45. And then this is maybe the most important setting in this entire video, which is the player speed parity scale. And what this setting does is make the disparity between fast players and slow players more drastic. So you're not going to have a 94 speed running back running down the sideline and he's going to get chased down by a 75 speed linebacker, which happens far too often in Madden. It's so frustrating. What turning this setting down does is turn the minimum threshold for speed down. So like I said, you're not going to have linebackers with 75 speed that are chasing down Tyreek Hill. With this setting down, Tyreek Hill is going to be the fastest player on the field, and you're going to feel it, whether he's on the other team or whether he's on your team. Because there's nothing more frustrating in this game than having a 95 speed receiver get chased down by 70 speed linebackers, or you get to the outside with your running back and a defensive lineman goes and chases him all the way down the field and catches up to him. That stuff is just not happening in real life. So I like to turn this setting down to 25. I've seen people who turn the setting down all the way to 0 even. So if you're still having issues with fast guys getting tracked down by slow guys, I would even turn this setting more down, but I have found that I like the setting at 25. And then as far as the physics-based tackling results, I've just kept it at 50. I haven't really had a huge problem with the physics-based tackling in the game. I have had a problem with tackling angles, which we will get into later once we get over to the player skill section. Tackle angles are absolutely atrocious in this game, but as far as the physics-based tackling goes, I like to just keep this at 50. And then that is the only settings that you need to change here in game options. After that, you're gonna press R1 or RB if you are on Xbox. I'm on PlayStation, so it's R1 for me, and you're gonna come over to the penalties section. With the penalties, I like to set the offsides penalty to 60 just so that a little bit more offsides gets called. I feel like it doesn't get called quite enough. Same thing with false starts. If you watch the NFL in real life, there are so many false starts every game, like at least 5 or 6 false starts every single NFL game. But here in Madden, you maybe will get one a game, if that even. A lot of times you won't even get that. I've even thought about turning this up a little bit more, but I'm gonna keep it at 60 for now. I like where 60 has me. Offensive holding, I turned down to 45. Holding happens so often in this game, and it seems to only happen on big plays. I've noticed that like they will not call a hold if you run for 5 yards, but if you break a 20-yard run, the chances that there is a holding penalty called goes through the roof. I mean, they call a holding penalty almost every time that you break a big run. So I have turned down holding a little bit. And then as far as all of these other ones, I just have them set to 50, as well as most of them being on, except this one. I am telling you guys, you need to turn off roughing the kicker and running into the kicker. These two penalties happen nearly every single time that the CPU kicks for me. I don't know what it is, but I had to turn them off. I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was getting called for roughing the kicker like 3 or 4 times a game. I've lost so many games because of it, where a team is settling for a field goal. We rough the kicker in the 4th quarter. They go down and score a touchdown. I lose the game. It's the most frustrating setting in this entire game. I'm telling you guys, turn off roughing the kicker and running into the kicker. I know we're going for the most realistic gameplay, and maybe this isn't super realistic that these penalties are off, but if they are on, you will get the most unrealistic penalty calls that you will ever experience. I'm telling you guys, please turn these settings off. And that does it for the penalty section, but let's jump over to player skill, where most of these are gonna be turned down to make it a little bit more difficult for you, but there are a couple that are up, and I'll explain why. So quarterback accuracy, I have turned down to 48. It's not a big change at all, but I think it is a little bit of a tweak and makes me incomplete a couple more passes than what I would before. I'm pretty good at timing the quarterback meter, so I like to turn this down a little bit just to make it a little bit more difficult on me. If you struggle with timing the quarterback meter, I would just keep this setting at 50. I think 50 is a fine place for it. Pass blocking though, turn this up to 55. Your offensive line, it doesn't matter how good they are, they will pass block like the worst offensive line in the NFL if you don't turn this setting up a little bit. I even would think about turning it up even more, but I like to have the struggle of getting sacked a lot. But if you get frustrated with getting sacked pretty much every time that you drop back, I would even think about turning this setting up to like 60, 65 possibly. I like it at 55 personally though. As far as wide receiver catching, I turn it down to 45 just so the computer defense has a little bit more of a chance, because I can kind of pick them apart every once in a while. I'm not by any means like the best Madden player, but I am good enough that the CPU can really struggle if I'm like hitting my passes consistently. So I turn down my wide receiver catching to 45. And then run blocking, I turn down to 33. The same thing with pass blocking, where I said your offensive line is going to pass block like the worst offensive line in the league no matter how good they are. They equally will run block like the best offensive line in the entire league. I can legitimately average like 6-7 yards per run with any team in the NFL. I've done a rebuild with the Giants. I've done a rebuild with the Broncos, which I'm actually currently doing on this channel. So if you are interested in that, you can go check out my playlist section. You can find my Madden 25 Broncos franchise series here on the channel. But I've done a rebuild with the Giants, a rebuild with the Broncos, a rebuild with the Saints, and a rebuild with the Jaguars. And equally in all of them, I have just dominated on the run game. My running backs just absolutely destroy everybody. I've turned this down to 33, and finally in this Broncos rebuild series that I am doing right now on my channel, I have had problems running the ball for the first time all year in Madden. So I like to turn run blocking down to 33. Ball security, I just keep it 50. If you are experiencing way too many fumbles, I would turn it up a little bit, but for me, I kind of like to fumble and make it more difficult on myself, so I just keep that at 50. Reaction time for my defense, I keep it 50. Interceptions, I do turn down to 39 though. If this is up, I just get way too many interceptions. It seems like my cornerbacks moss every single wide receiver, and the same thing goes for the CPU skill. I will also turn this down in CPU skill, because at 50 with this setting, it seems like the cornerbacks are like better receivers than the receiver. They attack the football better than the wide receivers do. So I turn player skill interceptions down to 39, and then I turn my pass coverage down to 48, And then as far as my run defense, tackling, I turn up to 55, just because, like I was mentioning earlier, the pursuit angles are so bad in this game, and you're gonna have to deal with that no matter what. So I personally like to get my tackling up just a little bit, so at least if I do get to the guy, I usually am gonna bring him down. And then as far as special teams, I just keep all of this stuff at 50. If you guys have different preferences and want to turn up your field goal power or anything, feel free to do so, but I don't personally do that. And then jumping over to CPU skill, as I said, most of this stuff is going to be bumped up to make the CPU better, except a few things, which I'll explain again. Quarterback accuracy, I put up to 58 just to make the CPU quarterbacks a little bit better. Pass blocking, I turned down to 44. The same thing that I said about player skill, where your offensive line is going to pass block like the worst offensive line of all time. The CPU's offensive line is going to pass block immaculately. You are never going to get pressure if you keep this at 50. So I like to turn it down to 44. I even would think about turning it lower than 44, but again, I like the struggle of like having a tough time beating the CPU. But if you just are not getting any pressure and it's frustrating you, I would be more than okay turning this down to like 40. I like it where it's at 44 though. Wide receiver catching, I turn up a little bit just to make the CPU offense better, as well as the run blocking. CPU run blocking is horrible. I don't know what it is where player skill run blocking is amazing and the pass blocking is horrible, and then CPU, the pass blocking is amazing and the run blocking is horrible. But that is just what the experience has been here on Madden 25 for me. So I turn the CPU run blocking up to 61. CPU ball security, I just keep it 50. The reaction time from the CPU, I turn up to 57 to make their defense break on balls more often, as well as the pass coverage to make the coverage more sticky. But as I said, I do turn the interceptions down to 30, because if you throw a deep ball in this game, the cornerback will go intercept it pretty much every single time. Doesn't matter how good your receiver is and how bad the cornerback is, they will go get that football. So I turn the CPU interceptions down to 30, and then I turn the CPU tackling up to 52 as well, just because they also experience the pursuit angles. I know it like doesn't feel like it when you're playing, you just get so upset that you experience it. But if you're running the football in this game, you can so easily just like swerve around a guy. So I like to turn up their tackling just a little bit as well. And then as far as their special teams, I just keep it all at 50 as well. And that is pretty much it for my settings. Again, this is for offline franchise players who like to play on all Madden and have a difficult experience beating the AI. You don't just want to go up and put 35 points, 40 points up every single week. You want to have a real struggle, have to work the ball down the field to make the game as realistic and challenging as possible, while still having it be fun and be able to win games as well. Because obviously you don't want to just go turn your player skill all the way down and then the CPU skill all the way up and never win football games either. Like, you want to still have a fun experience playing the game. But these are the settings that I have found that make it to where I can have fun on the game, but also have a challenging experience against the AI. But if this video did help you, please make sure to go down below and leave it a like. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and excited for more content, and go down below and comment whether or not you use these settings. And if you did, if you tweaked any of them, let me know what you did down below and if that worked out better for you as well. Again, I'm trying to make this fun for myself, just like I'm trying to make it fun for you guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and that is it from me. Peace.